So first, welcome. We're trying something new here since we're all in quarantine, so to speak. Um, First, my name is Antonio Ruiz. Thomas Fields. Thomas, you want to give us a 25-word or less introduction of yourself?
Okay. I suppose my identity wraps around having been an advertising man, copywriter on Madison Avenue right after Mad Men. I worked on Madison Avenue writing commercials for probably the first 8 years of my career, and I then came out to the West Coast, and I was a semi-failure as a screenwriter. And I did that. And then I went back to advertising. And then later in my second career became that in public service. I went from being, a chair at the Planning Commission for the City of Long Beach, redevelopment president, and to being the chair of the Harbor Commission for the Port of Long Beach, where I was unsummarily removed by the mayor, which is one of the best things that happened to me. And now I am my third career, which is a novelist. That's my story, and I am sticking to it, and it probably came in more than 25 words.
And one day we'll have a conversation about your unceremonious removal. So my name is Antonio Ruiz. I'm a publisher of PalacioMagazine.com, and I too have had quite a few careers, ranging from everything from radio and television, behind the camera, in front of the camera, sort of done it all. Worked mostly back east and then came out here, go west young man, and made my fame and fortune in Hollywood, or infamy in Hollywood. And my third career is being in college, to finally get my degree, which is, been always my life's ambition. It only took me 4 times to do it, but I'm still working on it. I guess the first big question is, how are you coping during this very strange time? How often do you go out?
How often do I go out? I generally go out about once a day, and I walk the neighborhood. And I find it rather pleasant despite the times we live in. It's a time for me to sort of, regenerate, renew the batteries. And I'll tell you frankly, I am getting in touch with my inner Thoreau. I am loving the idea of being self-isolated. I don't have a Walden Pond, but I do have my little hovel where I have my books and my stereo, and I have the LPs that go back to I have some LPs that go back to the 50s, but I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy writing. So despite the agony that some people are going through, I am finding this a time of renewal for me personally, and I'm not just I'm not ignoring what's going on in the world out there.
Right. I'm like you. I'm very comfortable being at home, but we go out for walks. I go out in the morning, very early in the morning, and do my walk by myself, and then in the afternoon I go out, with my wife Sumi to do some walks, and probably maybe twice a week I'll go make a foray out to get food, groceries. Household stuff we're pretty good with right now, but to get more fresh, things. It's been really interesting, the whole shopping experience. I'm just wondering how it's been for you, because for me, I've learned, okay, who are the ones who are doing the early morning senior hours? Which ones, what are the good times to show up, so that you're not online for 2 hours. I've just found it interesting how, some stores just seem to be better at managing the whole line thing than others. Some of them, like, say, they're senior hours, but then you show up and they're letting anybody in. So, and others are very strict about it. So I'm just kind of curious. I mean, have you been on any of those lines?
I have been real fortunate, and that my son and my daughter-in-law live 5 blocks away, and they have made it very clear they do not want the old man out in the world. And so, they they are doing the shopping.
Yeah.
They come by and put it on the doorstep, and in exchange for the shopping, I give them wine. Of course,
Yeah.
I pay for it, but I give them wine on top of that.
Yeah.
I personally don't like being dependent upon anyone,
Yeah.
even my own children.
Yeah.
So I find it somewhat of, I'm hamstrung by the fact that I got to depend on them. But I do plan to make it through this, this patch of black ice. And I'm going to, and so anyway, they're doing it for me. So I've not had the experience you've had.
So we're going to talk in the second segment about, what are the lessons, what are the impacts that we see on a lot of the things that are going on. But I'm just kind of curious. I mean, one of the things that I've just been really floored by is, how do I say this, scamming, but also just the impact. We've seen sometimes the best of people. I mean, I see people who are really diligent about the 6 feet or more away from people. There are those people who are really religious about the mask, the gloves. I mean, and then there are others who I'm just like floored. Now, as of this weekend, you will, in Long Beach and in LA, you cannot go into a store unless you have a mask.
Right.
But that doesn't stop people, and we know that that's going to happen. It's just, I'm just amazed at how some people are taking it very nonchalantly or are in denial of it. And I'm just sort of curious, what's been your reaction from your friends and neighbors about this?
Well, as I think I told you, I have a neighbor across the street who died.
Right.
And which is one of the reasons why I know these numbers that we're hearing are not substantiated by reality. He died, and that night he had bronchitis. He talked to my neighbor next door who called him and said, he was suffering pretty badly, but apparently he did not want to go to the hospital because, as the quote I heard was, he said to his wife, when she said, go to the hospital, don't let them get into your head. And so I can only assume that what that was talking about was Fox TV and its impact on people. He was talking about, don't let them get into your head. So he died. And I do know that he was not tested for the virus. And so all I can say is that, and on top of that, I had a friend who I played basketball with. I got an email from a mutual friend saying this person was on life support. The doctors wanted to take him off. And his wife was posted, obviously, but he was taken off. And he did die. And I know for a fact he was not counted among the confirmed cases in the city. And part of this whole thing about confirmed cases comes down to the fact that they don't have enough tests. And so the only way you get counted if you die in the hospital, and even then, if they don't test you for COVID-19, you don't go on the rolls as being died from the virus.
Yeah, and I guess if you die at home, that's not counted, because you won't even know if you're not tested.
Yeah, but let me just anecdotally, let me just say something else which I saw happen, and this gives you some idea of how unprepared we were, particularly, and even among our first responders. The gentleman who died across the street, initially a fire engine came, as well as paramedics. They stayed maybe 10 minutes and then left, followed by 3 police cars. The police went into the house. 2 of them stayed, the other 4 came out. None of these individuals, which would have been a total of about 12, were wearing any kind of protective gear. That means from face masks to gloves. Not long after that, I just discovered that the city of Long Beach had 11 first responders who had contracted the virus.
Right,
and
right.
They were in the nearest fire station to us. Now, I cannot say that those were the same individuals that came to the house without protective gear, but that is, I just saw it as being a correlation.
Yeah.
So we and my point is, I don't think we really know how bad it is now.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be part of trying to figure out what's next, and what going to be the impacts on a lot of things that we'll talk about when we come back from this break. All right, welcome back. So Thomas, I don't even know where to begin here, because one of the things that both on a local level, on a state level, on a national level, the questions are now being asked, when will we get back to business as usual? But before you even talk about that, you have to talk about what impacts this is having on people right now. So for instance, how many millions of people? 16 million people are out of work. The effects, what have we learned about our fragile healthcare system? What have we learned about people who are unemployed, about small businesses who may or may not come back? I guess, what would you say, based on everything you've been reading and seeing, is the number one thing that's been exposed as having, that's probably going to be have the biggest impact?
Oh God, I think as so much happens, or so much in this country comes down to, it's race. And I think one of the big things that I see is, I think it's 2. I think it's race, i.e. 70% of the people that die are people of color. But closely on the heels of that is the wide disparity of income in this country, which I think is as big a factor as race determining who lives, who dies. And that has to do with a lack of health insurance.
Right.
I mean, for so long, the propaganda was, we have the best healthcare system in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it.
And well, it's true if you've got the money for it.
I don't even know if it's true in that regard, but let's assume that it is true.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Yeah. I don't know what matrix you use to say it's true or not.
I'm being sarcastic. Yeah.
But that was the mantra that was going around. When anytime you pointed up failures within that system, it's still the best healthcare system in the world. Look at people that come from Canada, they come down here. I mean, it's all of that. So it's exposed that. Whether that gets fixed is another question. I tend to believe, as you know, I'm an eternal optimist. And so I tend to go back to.
I'm the opposite.
I know. That's why we get along. And why my wife married me, because she's exactly the opposite. She is, the pessimist with both feet solidly on terra firma. But I just tend to go back to what happened during the last major upheaval in our country, which was the Great Depression. Had there not been the Great Depression, had there not been, quote unquote, a progressive president like Roosevelt, we are likely never to have gotten Social Security. Yeah. We are likely never to have gotten unemployment insurance and some other progressive things. Like the WPA would have probably, I'm certain, would have never existed.
Right.
Um, I look at that as being similar to what's going to come out the other end of this. Uh, I am hopeful that a more just, equitable society comes out of this,
Mm.
and that we fix some of the things that have been exposed, such as the healthcare system, such as income inequality.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately I'm of the opposite view, because and the reason I'm saying it, I'm not saying that it might not happen at some point. Um, I'm looking at, you're right, all the things that you spoke about, the effects on people of color. I think the nature of our healthcare system, the fragile nature, has been exposed. Um, what I think that part of what complicates all of this is how people are reacting to it. Whether they're in denial of it, whether they're spreading rumors about it, whether they're, social media has been, I mean, I follow a lot of Twitter and a lot of Facebook and Instagram, and I'm just floored by what I think are perfectly rational people that I know, or sort of know, who have dug up every conspiracy theory, every rumor, every, um, I don't know, misinformation about what's going on. And why that's important is that it colors how we come out this other end. If you're believing, like some folks are, I mean, I'm talking about both the progressive left as well as the crazy right, that this is the result of some experiment gone wrong, or that this is, particularly when you're talking about the race part of it, people already, I've seen it, people already saying that this is a part of the long ending, or non-ending, excuse me, effort to eradicate people of color in this country. So it's like we're all so hyped up about the why we're going through this and the impacts on us personally, that I'm just worried about how is this going to have, and then you've got this crazy guy in the White House.
Mhm.
How is this going to unite us to deal with the aftermath?
Well, again, let's go back to the Depression, the Great Depression, which in essence led us to the Great War. And I would maintain that you had far more racism, far more blatant racism,
Well, yeah.
okay, during that period of time. Um, People probably were even more misinformed. Uh, you even had, Catholics were looked upon as being lesser. Italians didn't even count. And God forbid if you were Black or, Hispanic, you were like, you didn't even exist.
Right.
And if you did exist, you existed basically as a beast of burden. Even with all of that, we came out with a better society. And I think one of the things that's happening with the internet, which you're seeing, is you're getting the people who are those who are the most extreme, let us say, be it progressive, be it right wing. They're the
Right.
most extreme. They're on that contingent.
Right.
They're in the extremes of it. In some ways, they don't count. I mean, when I say they don't count, the change in society will be made when it impacts the masses in the middle. Those are the people that are going to be the ones that are going to come out and make that change happen. They may be led to some degree by the ideas generated from both the left and the right. But when it comes down to it, when they see what's being done to their pocketbooks, to their lifestyles, those people in the middle are the ones that are going to impact the change. I see what's happening now, and that's why I have some hope, is that they're saying that those problems that were once restricted to people on the margin, people of color, are now impacting those people in the middle, the great mass.
Right.
And I give you this one example. The war on drugs, Okay, drugs, well, we had the war on drugs, which Nixon started because it was a political thing. Frankly, it was about politics. He didn't give a damn about people using drugs. It was a way for him to basically get in and dismantle certain communities, primarily those of color, but it's also political communities.
Right.
And that's on the tapes for anyone that chooses to find out. So the war on drugs basically decimated communities of color. It allowed police to come in as occupying forces. And it also allowed commentators to say, those people, they are more prone to drugs, they don't want to work, all of that. But the reality was, and we see it now, that problem that started in those communities migrated to middle America. It migrated to the farmland.
Right.
The epidemic that's there among the drug epidemic now, is even greater than it is now in those urban areas where that started. And I just maintain now, and suddenly you see now, drugs are decriminalized. Addiction is decriminalized. It's a medical problem now. It's not a problem of loose morals. It's now, hey, we got to treat those people. That is the same thing that's going to happen with this great inequality of healthcare as well as income inequality.
Yeah, you really are the optimist. I think in any other time, under any other president, I might agree with you. And we're going to take a break in a few minutes, but to me, what complicates all of this is that we have a political party in charge. We have a president in charge who is just totally incompetent, and this has exposed him even more. We've got a Senate that is basically an enabler. We have an economic system that I'm sure the heads of Goldman Sachs and the heads of, you name the company, corporation, multinational corporation, knows that this guy's crazy, but there's an advantage to having him there. And I worry that even best case scenario that we get rid of him in November. Remember, he doesn't leave until January. There's a lot of damage can be done in between. And even if we, to be really optimistic, we being Democrats, take back the Senate and keep the House, I just feel that there's so much damage that will have been done that I just worry about armies of people who are unemployed, the recovery taking much longer than anybody imagines. You put all of those things together, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure the politics of it, the political nature of it, how that looks like a year from now.
Well, Antonio, again, I mean, this is not a new thing. I mean, the only thing, it's not new in any respect. It's not new economically. It's not new in terms of the pandemic issue. We had a pandemic of the same nature, actually worse, at least thus far, was 1918. 600,000 Americans died. And again, that was the known cases, 600,000, and we had a smaller population. So the numbers were actually higher than, today, 600,000 people probably is the equivalent of 2 to 3 million people in this country, given our population base.
Right.
And the country recovered from that. The depression is terrible. I mean, it changed, not just changed economically, it changed psychologically and philosophically this country. And frankly, what really got out was going through World War II.
Right, and that maybe that's what we're going to need is a war to get us out of here.
I don't think you do, because part of the problem was the politicians at that stage did the worst possible thing they could do.
Right.
Is to try and stop. They did tariffs.
And let's go to a break, and we come back. But I want to talk a little bit more about what we see coming out the other end, because it's just a different, we can no longer compare today to what happened back then. Because today there's this whole other, you know, between social media, news media, 24-hour news, internet has changed the way we solve problems, and for better and for worse. So anyway, let's talk about that when we come back from our So welcome back. Thomas, let me get this opinion. You talk about, you keep mentioning how we came through from a pandemic in 1918, the Depression, Roosevelt, the war, World War II. And I maintain that what's complicating any recovery is the fractured nature of where we are as a society. I'm talking about both politically, on top of everything else, culturally, rural versus urban, the religiously. I mean, we're such a fractured country today, and to me, it is highlighted or heightened by the fact that we live in this internet fueled, where we don't have commonality. We don't have common means of getting the same information. We if you're on Fox News or on right-wing media, you get one interpretation of what's happening today. If you're on MSNBC or CNN, you got another version. And then there are people in the middle who get no information because they don't read the paper, they don't listen to the radio, they go on the internet and play video games. So I'm trying to be optimistic, but I just keep asking myself, if everything changes in November, I'm talking about politically, a year from now, are we going to be worse off, even if the pandemic has, we have a cure, we have a vaccine? You're going to have people who are going to refuse to take the vaccine. You're going to have people who conjure up more conspiracy theories. You're going to have a much more, I think, closed society, because, we're going to be more about tracking, and we're going to be more about, I guess I'm just trying to figure out share with me where I should be more optimistic, or why I should be more optimistic.
Here's my first question. When was it ever different? I mean, it's if you look back at the history of this country, we were never united. Come on. From the first time that guy stepped off that ship and started butchering the natives, the Native Americans, all the factions that happened here, from the people that came over, the pilgrims, from the adventurers, from you go through history. This was never a United States. We did it, and we even had a civil war. You can't get much more fractious than that.
Right.
The issue of slavery, even before the Civil War, determining whether or not you allow slaves in certain parts of the country, how this country was divided up was about wrong lines of slavery. Mason-Dixon line. Why the West turned out to be the West. Exploration. It has always been fractious. In a religious, Catholics were scorned. I mean, you go through all of history of this country, we were not a united people. Even during the Depression, we hadn't talked about Depression. There was not. We had extremes groups. If you don't remember, the LA Times was bombed by anarchists.
Right.
You had bombings, you had anarchists, you had various groups did the same thing. The difference now, and again, getting back to communications, Time magazine, which was probably the most powerful publication of all, was pretty damn right-wing, pretty damn conservative. Okay, you did not have you had some liberal newspapers. You had black newspapers. The Fender in Chicago is notable. They had their audience, and those audience that never the twain should meet. It's not a whole lot different.
Yeah.
The only thing that makes it different now is that it's faster. And you got a Fox News, and I'm not even sure Fox News makes that much bigger a difference, but you do have Fox News. We have a megaphone on a major platform.
And how's this making me feel more confident?
Well, no. What I'm
Optimistic?
saying it is, I'm saying this. I would not look at this as a new problem. It's a long-term problem,
Well,
and it's a
yes,
long-term
right,
problem. We solved it, and we solved the surface of it.
right.
Or, and my feeling is, I feel even stronger now that with the more progressive view towards race we have today, with the fact that we don't have just binary race relationships, which used to be black and white.
Right.
You've now got subsets that you have to deal with. You've got,
Right.
you have to take into account, you have Asians, you have to take into account, you have brown people, you have to take into account, you have all kinds of people in this country no longer. So it is not going to be just a question of dividing and conquering, like we did before. The solution is going to have to come from people recognizing, and I think that's going to happen, that the outcomes are dependent upon all of us figuring out how we work together.
Yeah.
It ain't going to be, one group over another.
I,
That will not fly.
yes, but I'm sure you've heard this and we've discussed this. A lot of what's going on now, both at a national level and a local level, is, this is why Trump got elected. This last gasp of this illusion that we are not the diverse country that we are. This denial of it.
Yeah, but think about it too, Antonio, and just to stop on that point, I think it's a mistake to say that the majority of people who voted for Donald Trump voted for him strictly on the basis of their fear that the country was not going to be, would no longer be white. There was a core group. There was also, has to be a recognition that a lot of people were feeling some economic uncertainty.
Right.
And voted for him on that basis.
Right, but they were blaming other people for some of that economic uncertainty, which is what Americans do.
Yeah, which is, again, that's the nature. Yeah.
Right.
And somebody came in and fed into that. But keep in mind, the man he got 3.5 million fewer votes than the loser.
Right.
And it's what still gets lost in this. We don't know because because they hid it from us, they being the people that were doing the investigation, we do not know how much an outside force.
Well, I think all of that may or may not be true, is true, but I mean, all of that doesn't mask that there is large parts of this country where there are Republican majorities in in governorships and the houses that look at this country as if it's theirs and that someone is trying to take it from them.
Yes.
And what I worry about is, you're right, we've never been United States of America. I get that. I get that more and more rural versus urban is almost becoming a joke because everybody wants to move to urban areas. And that the suburbs in the last election, 2018, overwhelmingly sent a message to the Republican Party. I just again worry about that there is a long time between now and next year, and that people are going to, let's just say there are people on the right wing, including the madman in the White House, who are prepared to stop at nothing to keep us from moving forward and to having the resolution that we need to do to come out the other end. See, to me, it's the politics and the media that complicates the solution. And yes, we can point to a lot of other times when we again went through some really difficult times and came out the other end much better as a nation. I just think that this is different. I just can't get over that the intensity of the politics and the intensity of the media and the intensity of the GOP's mission to basically stop whatever movement there is forward will stop at nothing. We've seen that. We saw that in Wisconsin recently. We've seen that in the laws that they've passed, the voter suppression laws that they've been doing. I mean, I just, and as other people have, I'm not the only one who said this, they're just better at being assholes than we are.
Okay, let me say, that first of all, um, what the Republicans have done will end up ultimately becoming backfiring. And Wisconsin's going to be a classic example. They may win the short term, and I'm not even sure that's going to happen. They may win the short term, but there's going to be a massive backlash. It was done out of stupidity. It was done out of just, hubris. I'm in charge. I can do anything I want. Well, it doesn't necessarily work that way. Unless the majority of people in this country are willing to throw democracy overboard, they're going to see what has been happening with the Republican Party as being anti-democratic. And I mean democratic with a small d.
Right.
Okay. That's number one. Number two, I'd say this to you. I would be worried, extremely worried with having Donald Trump as president, a man who's outside the norms, a man who takes great pleasure in signing up to dictators, who in fact looks at them as being more his model than his predecessors in the Oval Office. I'd be more concerned if this man had not been stupid enough to alienate the military and the military, for starters, and the intelligence community second. There's no way Donald Trump is going to be able to successfully mount a coup, and that would be the fear. Where you're going is it's a coup. That's what you're leading up to, and that is the logical conclusion of what you're saying. The chances of that happening with the military taking part in it, as well as the intelligence community, is nil. Okay. And then on top of it, I add to that, as I believe a number of polls have shown, and a number of analysis, of student analysis that I take comfort in and read, that there's going to be a wipeout in November. Again, going back to past, going back to trends, what president has won with a country in a deep recession, which is going to happen? You got a president now who's in a pandemic, which it has been clear that his administration has been inept. How do you overcome those headwinds? Fox News, internet notwithstanding.
Yeah.
They're not that powerful. He's starting with a base, starting with maybe a very vocal base, maybe a base that won't peel off because as he said, he can kill somebody in Fifth Avenue, but it's a small base. It ain't going to grow.
Yeah.
In fact, I suspect it's going to decline.
Yeah.
So in the face of all of that, how do you see this? How do you see this guy?
I just think that in the battleground states, there's been every effort to hang on to power. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that if he gets kicked out, that he is not going to leave office. I'm just saying that I don't think it's going to be as easy as everybody thinks it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be an easy transition. But even more importantly, I think we're going to be left with GOP-led states that are going to make life for any person. And even if if Democrats take over the Senate and hang on to the House, I think it's going to be not like, 55 to 45. I mean, I think it's going to again be very close. And I think we're in for a very interesting time.
Let me just put it this way: the Republican Party has given us a game plan. If you want to look at it that way, they took a narrow majority in the Senate,
right?
And they changed the rules.
Yes.
And they changed the rules to make it so a very narrow majority can wreak havoc.
Yeah.
So they've shown the way, if you want to look at it that respect.
Yeah.
I don't think, no, it's not going to be easy, but it is, you've heard it here, and I'll live by this. But remember, I'm the same guy that said Carter would beat Reagan. Okay, so take this with a huge grain of sand. But I did say that I was wrong, but I firmly believe it's going to be a wipeout. It won't be, no, it will not be easy, nor do you want the Democrats to think it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
So then they'll pull a Hillary Clinton.
All right. So let's end right on that positive note or negative note, depending on your point of view. And so this is, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. We'll see if we do this again anytime soon.
I like that, Antonio.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and you have a good day.
Thank you. Take care, man.